I'm Liz Larson.
And I'm Bill McKenna.
And together, we created the Cognomovement system. And we'd like to welcome you to the New Life Perspectives radio show,
where we're going to be sharing with you tools, tips, and ideas that are going to change your life.
Five, four. Hello in UK Health Radio Land. I'm Liz Larson, and I'm here with my friend
Bill McKenna.
We're the hosts of the New Life Perspectives radio show, and we just happen to be the pair that created the Cognomovement system. And it's with great joy that we introduce our guest for the day, Richard Gordon. He is the founder of the Quantum Touch system, and he also has 5 bestsellers and practitioners around the world. So welcome, Richard.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
So I was sharing off camera that I had asked Bill if you'd reach out and invite Richard, because Quantum Touch was one of the foundational things that I learned when I put my attention on learning things about healing and metaphysics and that kind of thing. And it was something that really made sense to me, that I could utilize incorporated breath and really help me activate physical healing through my hands. So I really appreciated that. And so I wanted to have you on and have you share with people, how did this get started? Where did you get started in this industry or in this idea?
You know, I got started, like many other people, interested in healing work because my own health was suffering. And when a doctor said, yes, you have a lot of symptoms, but nothing's bad enough to treat yet, so why don't we wait till you get worse? So I went to a holistic health school, learned about polarity therapy, wrote a book on polarity therapy, and a few months before the book came out, I met this gentleman who had never taught a workshop in his life. He had been doing this extraordinary technique for over 20 years. And when I saw him work on my girlfriend, and one of her hips was much higher, she had a major scoliosis, he just touched her hip and it rolled back to alignment. And I'm like sitting 5 feet away. Oh my God. And then I saw her rebalance the cranial bones. And then I saw him work up and down the scoliosis. And about 8 or 10 minutes later, half of it had straightened out right before my eyes. My jaw was on the floor. I assumed he had a major gift and no one else is going to learn it. But in the course of the day, I saw that I could actually cause bones to move into alignment. But as you have discovered, having studied my work as much as you have, the moving of alignment is less than 1% of what it's about. It's about accelerating the other person's body and spiritual potential for self-healing. We're stimulating their self-healing potential. We like to say that the definition of a healer is someone who was sick and got well. And a great healer was very sick and got well quickly, because it looks like, you know, in the movies, we're going to put our hands on someone and we're going to cause them to heal. That's not what's happening. We're holding a field of energy, and then their body is in training to our vibration, and their own self-healing mechanism is what does the healing. I'm not a healer. My cells are healers. Their cells are healers. So we're stimulating another person to heal themselves. But it looks like I'm doing it to you, but it's not exactly how it works.
So how does it work? This is amazing. What an amazing thing that this lineage, of this mystery man who's been doing it.
So here's what it is. The Western scientific model only accepts things that are measurable, quantifiable. If you can't explain it with math, physics, and logic, it doesn't exist according to the Western model. But we're dealing with what the Chinese call qi, the yogis call prana, the Japanese call ki. It's the life force energy, that animating current of life. And this is a spiritual energy. And we're using breathing and body awareness. There's no woo, there's no magical techniques. We're just using body awareness, breath, love, and intent to raise our own vibration. So by moving awareness through our body, by linking it to breathing patterns. It's not the breath and it's not the body awareness. It's the synergy of the breath with the body awareness, moving it in waves through our body, and then connecting it with our love and intent. And then what we do is we hold a higher and higher vibration throughout the session. We're lifting our vibration the whole time, and then the other person's energy has to match us, but we keep lifting it up throughout the session. And so they eventually can match us vibrationally, and then their body does its own self-healing. So it's on one level extremely simple, but if you were to understand it on a micro level, it's unfathomably complicated. But from our point of view, breathe, body awareness, love, intent, give the energy, and then watch the miracles happen.
And it's pretty fun too. I remember when I first learned it, I had an aunt who was visiting who isn't into any of this stuff.
Yeah.
And my family is actually quite religious and not really into it either. But
Yes.
the idea of shifting bones, like everybody has a back problem, everybody's spine hurts. And these were older people even at that time. And so, I said, let me try, like, let me see if I can adjust. And it worked. And it was really, really fun. And now, actually, in the work that Bill and I do, often that is still a measurement that we'll take, that alignment in the body, congruency in the body. So not only does it work, but it's actually a super fun party trick.
It really is. And now 98% of what people use it for is bringing down pain, inflammation, accelerated healing, accidents, injuries, working on organs, glands, systems. And the alignment is a really fascinating thing. So about 17 years after I learned how to do what you learned, which is the basic quantum touch, breathing, body awareness, I made a discovery that I could, this is what we call level 2 quantum touch, which is I bring all the energy into my heart chakra and I project it to the other person, and you can move the bones without touching the person. Then I discovered, one of my students turned me on to the sphenoid bone, which is behind the nose and eyes. And I didn't know this, but people are born with the sphenoid bone out of alignment. Then if I meditate on the sphenoid bone and send the energy from my heart chakra to them, not only do the cranial bones instantly align, but the hips instantly align, and they'll stay aligned for years. And then I found out if I meditate on my finger, I can wave it and say boing, and in 1 second, align the hips and the cranial bones pretty much for the rest of their lifetime, because they don't go back out of alignment again. And this just opened up the door to discovering the intersection of matter and consciousness in an empirical way. So this is that was my fourth book, The Secret Nature of Matter, where I found out you could meditate on any physical object, like my car keys, for example. And if I meditate on them as if it was the sphenoid bone and touch somebody with intention, I can align them instantly, and it'll last a lifetime. So we're just shooting this documentary now. And one of the things we did was we had a truck park outside. We had 2 chiropractors measuring people. And then I taught the host of the show how to align people by sending heart energy to the person. And she aligned 7 other people. And then it shows up on 3D X-rays from the truck that was parked outside taking the CBCT scans. And you could actually see the sphenoid moving, and you could see the occiput aligning. Now, yes, somebody can put their thumbs and say, yeah, that side's high, but now we can actually show the X-rays. And this breaks the old model of materialism that only math, physics, and logic will show you what's real in the reality.
Now, the people who were being worked on, the people who were being aligned, did they know that something was happening?
Yeah. There's no physical way for chiropractors and physical therapists and osteopaths will either use force or pressure to get the hips to move, or they'll use pressure to try to get the cranial bones to move, but they don't usually last very long, 2, 3, 4 days, and they're back out of alignment. With this particular alignment, you can do it without touch, and there's no placebo or suggestion model to suggest that the hips will align or the cranial bones will align, since Gray's Anatomy says they're fused and they can't move. But they do move And the easiest way to know that is if you lift up on the back of the occipital ridge, where you kind of feel a little handle there. And if one side looks this much different than the other, what that tells you is the sphenoid is off that much, because the sphenoid bone behind the nose and eyes is actually touching the occiput. And if the occiput is uneven, that means the sphenoid is uneven. I don't know exactly which way it is because I've never really studied it, but in the x-rays you can see as the occiput's moving, the sphenoid is also moving, and that's what we're meditating on. So this is, it's like a party trick because I can just wave my finger and say boing
Yeah.
and align somebody. But the deeper meaning is we have to rethink physics, medicine, and human identity, because these are human abilities that are not considered real culturally at this time.
You know, that was what I was going to ask next is, you know, it does sound like magic. It sounds like
Yeah.
hocus pocus and woo woo.
Yeah.
And maybe you have a special gift and that's how you do it. But we know you've taught thousands of people.
Yeah.
What is it that makes it really available and teachable to other people?
It is probably the easiest skill a person can learn, because we naturally have the ability to breathe. We have the ability to have kinesthetic awareness inside our body. And by linking them together, we have the ability to intend, we have the ability to love. And just by directing a person to use what they already know, I've seen people be able to do this in 5 minutes of training or less. Even at a distance, they can do the stuff right away. It is, you know, it was funny. I was invited to a lab meeting at the University of Arizona to show a group of scientists. They said, "What did you learn? How did you get here?" And I went detail by detail, each step of the way. And they said, "Well, show us." All right. So they had people measuring each other's hips. And after I touched them with an object I had meditated on, I then handed the object to one of the scientists and said, "Okay, use intention and have this work to align them." And it did immediately. And then after about 7 or 8 minutes of looking at everybody, they said, "There's no doubt this works." They had 3 or 4 people measuring everybody. And then 4 of them said they wanted to research and publish. And then they bragged about the MRIs and CT scans and other equipment that they had. And they were really excited about it. And then the first guy said, "But if I do this, I know I'll never get tenure at the university." And number 2, 3, 4 said, "Yeah, doing this would be academic suicide." And then the head professor said he knows of no university in the United States or Europe that's open to what I discovered. And then he compared my discoveries to Ignaz Semmelweis, Gregor Mendel, William Harvey, Galileo, Giordano Bruno, and Gregor Mendel, and a host of others who could not be appreciated while they were alive. And then he said, "Well, good luck. You know, we're not going to do it here. Go, you know, take it somewhere else." So that's why I started this documentary, to get all the top people, the Dean Radins and Lynn McTaggarts and others who were studying this stuff, and into the documentary, so we can make an argument for a post-material science, because science assumes that we're going to be able to weigh, measure everything, but our love is not measurable. Us being entities and spiritual beings is not measurable. And AI thinks that we're going to be able to upload our consciousness to a machine, but they don't know what a self is. And the whole thing about self-awareness is you first have to have a self. And the programmers know how to create awareness of chess pieces, but there's no self winning the game. So the chess game doesn't know that it or care that it's playing a game of chess. It has no awareness. It's a zombie, essentially. And what I'm showing is what a self is. This is really deep stuff, because it changes the whole model of our cosmology.
So we have to take a break and hear from the UK Health Radio. And then when we come back, let's talk a little bit more about this documentary. So UK Health Radio, take it away. And we're back. We're talking with the founder of Quantum Touch, Richard Gordon, and he hinted about a documentary that's about to come out. And you told us it is called the Galileo Project. Yes? And
Yes.
it is directed by the director of What the Bleep Do We Know, if any of you have heard about that. But give us a little background and tell us what this documentary is going to be about, even a little more depth.
Yeah. Essentially, as I've said, we live in a material, and the idea that materialism is the only thing that's real. So when the church, when the early scientists were all very religious, and then about the time of Darwin, they decided that no, we can throw out all the woo, all the Christian woo, and just talk about material things. And what I'm seeing is there's something in between the two, that we can still keep a spiritual nature of what we are, but we don't have to have a dogma, nor do we have to insist that everything is simply materially based. So what we have is a whole group of people. I'm probably in the documentary about 7 or 8% of the time, because we've got Marjorie Wallacott, who is a physician who had a near-death experience, which is so dramatic, and she was aware of everything that happened to her when she was, quote, dead with her eyes taped shut, and she can't be in denial about it. We have people like Lynn McTaggart, who's done a lot of research. We got Dean Radin of Noetic Science and Roland McCready of Heart Math, a whole host of wonderful people who have all been studying this. And then I'm there showing a little bit of this stuff. But what most people really, and by the way, we're just starting the editing, so we're 6 or 8 months away from being able to sell it and have it be seen. So we're just finishing the shooting right now. So we're still early in the production, that is. However, what most people care about is how can they use these approaches for self-healing or to help their loved ones. So what happened was I got to show Dr. Norman Shealy, the founding president of the American Holistic Medical Association, what I had discovered. So he had me working on his nurses, his secretary, and his accountant. And we took all the pain away. And I said, what do you think? He said, well, I think some of those people might have liked you a little bit. He said, I want to see how this works on my most difficult chronic pain patients who have had 20 and 30 years of constant pain, who have never been helped by any traditional or alternative therapy. All right, so I trained him and his staff in 1 hour how to start using this work. We did group sessions, and what we saw was that an average, that these 1 hour sessions were giving people brought their pain down between 30 and 70% when they had not been helped by any other method. And Norm was absolutely astounded by this, and he called it the first technique that may truly allow us all to become healers. But it goes beyond that, because beyond the healing, we see about 5 or 10% of the time that the sessions will not be helpful. We're not making progress on people. So I wanted to see, can we go deeper? And what I found was there's a concise way of discovering the emotional causes of health conditions. And this took me about 27 years to figure out, but I got it. By asking simple interrogative questions like, what emotions do you feel and what's keeping you from doing, and when did it begin, and what are the symptoms? And I just ask all these questions, about 8 or 9 questions, and I write down everything they say verbatim, and I pump them for more answers, and I don't put any words in their mouth. I just describe the pain in more detail, tell me about it. And then when I feed the answers back as a question, let's see, 10 years ago when this began, was there an emotional situation in your life that made you feel like you were being stabbed in the back, that you were this and that? Well, it sounds like my relationship with my ex or my dad or something. I say, let's see if it fits. And then very slowly, I'll read all 35 or 40 of their replies. Well, did you feel isolated? Did you feel hopeless? Did you feel alone? Did you feel, and it's, yeah, everyone is a perfect description. What do you do with those emotions? They're the ones I never want to feel. And then I hand them the list. Maybe you're feeling it in your body instead of feeling it as emotion. So that is the first step in a 7-step process. And what I found was, first is the recognition that I'm not feeling my emotions. And those emotions are expressing themselves as symptoms in my life. The second step is release. How do you release the hurt, the anger, the shame, the guilt, the fears? How do you release all those? That's step 2. Only when they've been released can you go to step 3, which is starting to take responsibility. Yes, they did it to me, but I've been carrying this around all my life, and I've been hurting myself and people I love, which leads to the remorse, which sets them up for massive self-forgiveness, unfathomable levels of forgiveness, and then the accounting self-love that comes in like a tidal wave of self-love that they experience. And then not only do the symptoms go away, but they're grateful that they had the experience, because all the symptoms are the beginning of what I've termed a dark miracle. Now, we see successful people all over the world. They went through their trials and they realized they could never have become who they are had they not gone through that adversity. And then we see the symptoms of their body as an adversity, as well as health and relationships and success issues are all the kinds of adversity that people have. And we now have a concise way of helping people discover what those emotions are, processing them, releasing them, going through the self-forgiveness process, and coming out the other side, realizing that when they're on the other side, then the symptoms can spontaneously disappear. So the energy healing is a fantastic tool that every family member would want to know. But if you're stuck and it isn't enough of an answer, then we need to go deeper into the emotional causation. And we call that work self-created health, because it is how we bring health to ourself through emotional honesty and emotional process work.
So I have a question for you. If one person in every household knew a technique like yours, like ours, like some of the others that really create change in the body, physically change in the body, change the emotional state, change the way the body's interacting with the brain, what do you think would happen?
Well, essentially, we would live in a different world, because if you were to bring energy healing into common knowledge and some basic nutrition and some basic emotional process work, we could probably reduce healthcare costs by about 90%. Because if people were taking responsibility, not eating, you get on the no crap diet, and you start eating real food, you start getting emotional process work and some energy work when you need it, we would eliminate most of what we consider necessary for healthcare. But we're a few weeks away from that at this moment.
We tend to think that most people don't have any idea how their body actually works. They don't have any idea about the synergy between the body and the mind, or what they even are. And like you said, what is the self? You know, most people have not a clue if you ask them that. What is your consciousness? Most people don't know. What would you say about that, about the simple education of ourselves about who and what these physical bodies and our spiritual health is?
When energy healing can be introduced into basic education, into when you're 6 or 7 years old, they can start learning about it and other processes and learn about what real nutrition is and things like this, the whole world would be transformed. It's fundamental education. And then implied in this work is that we're spiritual entities. Because if I can send energy at a distance, and I could align somebody, in China as easily as somebody sitting next to me, it's not electromagnetic, because electromagnetism falls off with distance. There's no distance of love. You can love somebody just as well from 1,000 miles away as next to you. You don't stop loving them. They don't know the love is a real force. They don't know the life force energy inside us is a real force. And when we understand that this is the most real part of ourself, this is what we really are, then it changes everything changes. Physics, medicine, psychology, cosmology, all change forever once we understand who and what we are. But right now, the materialist viewpoint, which is what the Galileo Project is all about, saying, hey, it's just a limited perspective. It's not wrong, because cars and cell phones work and satellites, but it's just a limited perspective on the reality. And if we open ourselves up, we can expand and have a bridge between the science, religion, spirituality as the point between the two, the bridge between, and explore the great mystery, who and what we really are, and how deep love goes, and what our essence is. That's really what the great mystery is all about.
You know, it's true. I mentioned that my family was very religious, and the idea of energy or energy healing tends to be taboo amongst those crowds. Like, we're talking about something bad, or and not that it's integral to what we're made up of. That energy, if we don't have it, it means we're dead. The minute that spark goes out of the body is no longer living. So we are talking about our life force. And yet somehow that tends to be taboo.
Well, tell Jesus not to do hands-on healing, okay? Because that was part of the teaching. And I think somewhere in the Bible, he said, thou shalt do greater things than I have done. Well, was he just blowing smoke? Or are we supposed to take this work and move beyond it? So if they give me any trouble, I said, well, was he fibbing? Was he joshing us, telling us that we shall do greater things when he didn't really mean it? I hold them to what, should we not do the work of Jesus and put our hands on somebody with love, have love from one to another? Is that not what we're supposed to do? That's why I challenge them, and they don't have a good answer for that one.
Well, there is some really good good information now about the confusion. The confusion began thousands of years ago with a simple word, and everybody has read in the Bible, just ask for it in Jesus's name and it'll be given. And I don't know if you've tried it lately, but a lot of people are asking, in Jesus, please, in your name, I need a new car, or whatever, right? Or heal this person. Well, the word that he spoke Aramaic, and at that time, the word, I think it was beshime, I might have gotten that wrong, but the Aramaic word could be two different meanings. Meaning, number one is in my name. Other meaning is in my method. Now, what was Jesus's method? Well, he talked about unconditional love. There you go, right? Yeah. Unconditional, seeing the perfection in another, right? And Jesus saw them as perfect, and he loved them, and he didn't have any fear. So the work that you're doing, right? You don't have any fear, and you are loving them, right? Yeah. You're unattached to an outcome. You are perfect. I see your perfection. So this is actually directly in line with what Jesus was doing. You're basically doing, you have rediscovered Jesus's work. And this could be made it available.
And the other thing is, when people are actually practicing this work, they could be working on someone they know or don't know, but they enter what I'll call like an angelic state of being, where they just want to give. And so we're familiar with love from mother to child, or brotherly love, or different cousins or whatever, but this is just love to another without agenda whatsoever. And so we enter these states of consciousness very easily, and we just hold the space, and we're doing the breathing and holding the love, and then we see miracles. We had a lot of our practitioners forming weekly groups where they'd meet together and practice the quantum touch work with each other, and they'd often invite somebody else in who needed healing, and they kept seeing miracles every week. And they said, well, we can't keep calling it a miracle if it happens all the time. So they came up with a new name and they started calling it normicals. Because when miracles become normal, we have to have a new word for it.
I
So
like
these are
it.
normicals.
A normical.
It's another miracle. It's just another normical.
A
And
normical.
we see phenomenon that have just not been documented. The burns suddenly stop hurting and no scar tissue and on and on. And so these are phenomenon that are very, very common. And yet, Wikipedia calls everything from chiropractic, homeopathic, Ayurvedic, and my work and everybody else's work, pseudoscience, because it's political and it's money driven by the medical industry. But when they're not afraid and they start actually researching it, we're going to make so much progress so quickly and the world will be a better place. But at this point, money has kind of driven the show of what exists out in the world. So things like that you're doing with the nervous system or we're doing with energy work, these things could actually be explored by universities. And now if I was a billionaire, I would just create a big university and say, okay, let's explore the dickens out of it all. Let's study everything from alternative energies to alternative healing. Let's really nail this down. I just don't happen to have $1 billion yet. So
Not yet.
not able to.
All right, so we need to take a quick break and hear from the UK Health Radio Show, and we'll continue to talk about normicals and miracles when we come back. So UK Health Radio, take it away. So we're back and we're talking with Richard Gordon, founder of Quantum Touch, about miracles. And I heard a miracle described the other day that I really liked, that a miracle is considered something that shouldn't happen, but does anyway, which really doesn't apply to work like yours and like ours, because we know it's going to happen. We know how it's going to happen and that it will. And like you, we have had lab testing. I mean, we can prove it. But I think what a miracle, the word actually separates people from that rationalizing of it. They think it's something that can only happen, if you stand on your right foot and tilt your head and close one eye and wait for a lightning strike, then this healing happens. But I think what you're talking about and what we're talking about is really expectable healing.
It's a little bit unpredictable. I think my favorite definition of a miracle is when something happens that far exceeds your expectations.
Yeah.
It could be anything from like an impossible parking place to somebody rising, being declared dead and then not being dead type of thing. Whatever it is, anywhere in the spectrum of stuff, these could all be miracles. But because we've limited our sense of possibility so much, more appears to be miraculous than should be. So, we used to have about 40 testimonials of severe burns that people healed incredibly fast. And then when COVID happened, we had to take all our testimonials down because we couldn't keep our website that way. We're saying, oh, you're making medical claims. No, we're not. We're just telling you what people have told us. We had thousands of stories and we just took them all down because that was no longer acceptable in this modern culture.
Yeah, that happened quickly, didn't it?
Yeah, it was really fast, but I'm coming back with something different.
Yeah, I mean, that's another one of those things, like in this industry, we do have to be careful about what we say or what we even support is being said about our work, because it can be medical claims. So something has to change in our society, even politically and legally, for people to start to be able to fully accept that we can heal ourselves, that we can heal ourselves sometimes without drugs and sometimes without surgery, and more oftentimes than not without other intervention. So I think that's the thing. And maybe this documentary that you have coming out will help people awaken to that. With that being said, we always offer our audience a little technique, something they can use and take home right now, today, that'll make their life a little better. Do you have something that you'd love to share with them?
Sure. Yeah, I would say let's start by breathing. People don't realize that the life force energy, the chi, the prana, the ki, can be stimulated and activated by breathing. So see if you can feel your feet. see if you can bring some awareness to your feet. And breathe deeply and breathe into your feet and see if you can increase the amount of sensation in your toes or the balls of your feet or the soles of your feet, or just get your whole feet vibrating or tingling. And see if you can start bringing that awareness up your body. Bring it up your legs. Bring it through your upper thighs. And just start breathing more deeply and moving this awareness up your torso, up your face, down your shoulders, down your arms, into your hands. Maybe cup your hands together and see if you can gather awareness in your hands. And that may feel like tingling, vibration, some sense, increased sensation, heat, cold. And what we're doing essentially is we're moving that life force energy. This is stimulating your own life force energy in your body. And what we teach people to do is, this is a very basic technique in quantum touch to start moving the energy. And this is something you can practice. You can breathe more deeply than normal. We have a whole system of breathing and body awareness exercises, but this is a good beginning one. Just breathe more deeply than normal. Feel waves of awareness moving up your body, the top of your head, down your shoulders and arms, into your hands, and gather the energy in your hands. And if you're able to increase the sensation in your hands, that means it's going to be very easy for you to learn to use quantum touch, because that's how we begin. We begin everything with breathing body awareness. Plus, you're also doing a very minor healing on yourself just by doing this technique. So this is actually stimulating that life force energy that's moving through your body, and it's working on you already.
That is beautiful. I'm laughing because it made me think of something. So when I first learned this, with your method, I told you that it activated my hands. And you know how when a nursing mom hears a baby cry that's not even hers, things will start to happen. Well,
Yes,
after
yes.
I learned that, and I learned, how to activate the energy in my hands, someone might get hurt or be talking about being hurt, and all of a sudden, here I am with my hands on fire, lit up.
I had the same thing happen to me dozens of times where I can't help it. I'm vibrating like crazy because
Yeah, yeah.
you
It
just
just,
want, it's very natural for us to want to care about each other. If we're not severely wounded and we're not psychopathic, it's automatic that we start to feel each other's pain, that we want to do something to relieve the pain of the other, and that's called compassion. That's the name of that thing. When you feel the awareness of suffering and you want to do something to alleviate the suffering. And they found that even rats demonstrate compassion. Cats, dogs, dolphins, chimpanzees, bonobos, all the higher creatures are able to demonstrate compassion, but some political types don't. But that's another story. But compassion is natural to human beings. And when you see villages where people don't get alienated from each other, the level of compassion in the village is tremendous. And the joy level in these little villages where they don't have a lot of material stuff is very, very high. And the bigger the city, the less compassion you tend to see amongst the people. So not that wealth automatically destroys compassion, but you do see a diminishment of compassion. So you go to a 5-star hotel, nobody will talk to each other. And you're out in the countryside. Hello, how are you? Come to my house, have something to eat. It's very, very sweet. So what I want to see is a world where compassion becomes the mode of communication again, and not so much alienation. Because, one of the things about the whole virus passing around was be afraid of each other, hide from each other, don't hug each other, don't show your face, be afraid to touch somebody else. And so we create more alienation. And I want to see a world where we don't have to hide from ourselves and each other, and we can be more emotionally vulnerable to ourselves, not hold back the depth of love or grief or whatever emotions we're feeling, to be fully present.
it's really interesting that you say that. We teach a seminar that it's one of our longest ones, and it's called Cogno Conscious. And the idea is that you eliminate all the things that are holding your energy down, things like shame, fear, guilt. And
Yes.
at the end of which, the very first one, some of our people who are also our practitioners came to that, and they called on the way home from the class. Some of them live on the East Coast, and our classes are in San Diego. And they would say, is it normal that I literally am blessing everyone in the airport, like even the drug dog? Where before you walk through the airport and you don't even see people, you just don't even notice that there's
Yeah.
another human. But something about that raised level of consciousness that sticks,
Yeah.
by the way, made them aware of each and every human and really the light and the life within that human. I think you're 100% right. We do not notice the being in front of us. What we
Yeah.
see is a body with some clothes on and maybe some hair that we like or don't, but there
Yeah.
isn't a connection on that level. And I think saying the word compassion, I think really is the answer. Feeling them. Those of
Yeah.
us who are healers, some of us can't help but feel everyone around us. And that's a different
Yes.
situation. But being able to just recognize the human in front of you, really, I think would make a massive change. And once that happens, noticing the energy, what we call energy, noticing that life force and its ability to create would maybe be the next step. What do you think?
I think that compassion would solve all the problems on Earth, because you couldn't cut down a rainforest or let children starve or anything deleterious, because your priority would be caring for the suffering. And if compassion was the priority, all the policies would change overnight. So that is the answer to virtually all our problems, is higher levels of compassion with wisdom and connection. And then we're gonna make these discoveries, like the life force energy slows the aging process. And we can possibly now, I turned 74 in early September, and I'm stronger than I was in my 20s. I have no joint pain. I have no lack of mobility. I don't know my own age. I'm sprinting down the street as easily as I did when I was in my 20s, because using the life force energy on a daily basis, we're revitalizing ourselves. And by not getting hardening of the categories and the belief system of what the limitations are, we don't know what's possible. And just like we don't know what's the limits of healing, we don't know what the limits of self-actualization are. So we can do things we never even imagined.
It's so true. So, Bill, let's give you the last word on this. We have about 2 minutes before the end of the show. What do you have to say about compassion changing the world?
Oh, well, I think that's just a plain of course. And the last thing I gotta say is to the audience, don't you just love this, Richard? This is the first time I got to meet him, but I tell you what, through spending a little bit of time, and hopefully you're getting this through the radio waves as you're listening to this, my God, my heart opened. You feel love for this man, and the work he's done on the planet. I just thank you for the time. I mean, because it made me feel so good. And I hope everybody in the audience is getting that. And the other thing I want to say is look it up, Quantum Touch. There are practitioners around the globe. Go see one. Enjoy that experience of this energy. If you can feel that right now, make that happen for yourself.
So, can
Bill,
everybody
thank
find
you
you?
so much. Yeah, you can just go to quantumtouch.com and you can see all the seminars that we have and the books that are out there and the other materials. We make everything totally available. We don't hide the information. You can learn everything that I talk about in books. You can take live workshops, or we have a video workshop of the basic quantum touch. So we don't hold back on, oh, you got to take the advanced stuff. No, you get it right away. We don't keep secrets.
It's fantastic. So, I mean, from personal experience, it's really good work. And even if you're just starting out, you don't know anything about moving energy or healing with your hands, any of that, it's a good place to start. It really is. It's a great um, entry level education, even though it, like you said, it's not entry level work, but it's a great place to start. It's simple to learn and use. So I vouch for you. So everybody, we'll see you again next week. Everybody be safe, and we love you all. And thanks again, Richard, for being here. And hopefully we'll talk again soon.
Look forward to it. Thank you so much, both of you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here with us on the New Life Perspective radio show. For more information or to find out more about the work that Bill and I do, please visit us at cognomovement.com or email us at info@cognomovement.com. See you again soon.